Alright, so in this lesson today, what we're going to talk about is a general review of what we've covered so far. So we're going to make a specific design, you're going to follow along, you're going to try to match what I do. You can feel free to throw your own little touches on it, that is perfectly up to you. What I want to see today is that you understand the basics of what we've been doing. The layer masks, the adjustment layers, the layer styles. I want to make sure that you have got that, you've got it locked. That's something I'm going to grade on in every project. So let's go ahead and jump into this assignment. This is what it looks like right here. Currently it's just called ticket.psd. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be making a concert ticket for a J. Cole concert. Now before we begin, I'm going to look at your layers. So if you will, look at your layers. All of my text layers are currently visible. I'm going to turn those off by clicking on one and dragging straight up. And I'm going to do the same for my image layers, and I'm going to bring my images in. Now, we've gone over a lot of different things on layer masking, so I'm hoping you understand this. You have two tools over here on the left-hand side that can do this fairly easily, the quick selection tool or the object selection tool. For the sake of this course, we're going to be using the quick selection tool because the object is new and will not show up on any of your tests or certifications. So we're going to stick on the quick selection tool. I'm going to use this plus positive quick selection, and I'm going to make sure I'm on J. Cole's layer. Now I just need to make a selection of him. He should be fairly easy to select until you get to his hair. His hair is a big old mess. Like me, if you make a mistake like this, you can always hold Option, come back and try to clean this up as best you can. Now you're never going to get his hair perfectly because of the mess that it is. So what we're going to do to try to clean this up and make it a little bit better is we're going to go to the top to where it says Select and Mask. Click on that for me. That's going to give you this basic look. It's going to be very different from what you see before. I want to drop the transparency down so that you can kind of see what you've got selected and what you don't. If you take it down to 0 or put it at 100, excuse me, you'll see the exact cutout of what you're about to do on him. You'll see the areas in the hair where you have a problem. I'm going to have this second brush, the Refine Edge Brush tool. And I'm just going to kind of draw in some of these areas in the hair where it's a little bit rougher. And what Photoshop is going to attempt to do is guess which colors you're trying to cut out and which colors you're trying to keep based on what you just clicked. So if you do it closely enough, it should clean up most of that background out of his hair as you click, hold, and drag around the edge of his dreads. So it can kind of create a mess. Sometimes it'll still cut off pieces of hair. Kind of is what it is. You just want to clean it up a little bit. Now over here on the right, you're going to get options for this, for edge detection and global refinements. I always bump my smooth up just a little bit, my feather up just a little bit, my contrast just a hair, and I always shift the edge in about 1 or 2%. What this is doing is it's just bringing in where you selected just a hair. So just a little bump up on smooth, feather, and contrast, and a little down on shift edge. Don't go far, 1-2% most. When done, hit OK. Now you won't see a whole lot of difference here. You should see that the selection is a little tighter around his hair than it was, but it's not perfect still, and it's not gonna be unless you want to go in there and like finally detail out each little bit of hair that he has. But it's close enough for me. Once I have that selection, I'll hit Add Layer Mask, and that will cut him out. Perfect. Now on the wing here, we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna do it a little different. The wing has got a very black background, so instead of using the quick selection tool, I'm going to use the magic wand tool. Make sure you're on the wing layer. The magic wand tool allows you to select anything of one color. So because the black background is all black, I'm going to click one time, and it makes a good selection of that wing. Now if I attempt the layer mask here, it's going to cut the wing out because I've got the wrong thing selected. So I'm going to go up to the top, select, inverse, and then I'll use my layer mask. That gives me my wing. The last thing is this stone background. Now everything is right where it should be. I need this white border at the bottom and on the right, So I'm going to leave all of that right where it is. I want you to click on the J. Cole layer, and I want you to go down to your adjustment layers, and I want you to look for photo filter, and I'm going to add a warmer filter onto him so that him, the wing, and the text, the stone background, all kind of have that same warm tone. Now this is the reason his image is down toward, or all the images are at the bottom and the text is up top, because this is going to affect everything down unless I link it. You'll see if I link it, it only affects J. Cole. But I don't want that. I want it to affect everything. So I'm going to unlink it. And I'm going to leave that warmer tone on everything. Next, I want you to click on your stone layer right there. And I'm going to add another adjustment layer. This time, I'm going to look for gradient map, I believe. Yeah. So in gradient map, what I can do is I can come over here and I can select different gradients to give me different looks for the stonework of this background. So I want you to find something that you like, or if you want, you can double click down here and you can change your colors to whatever you want them to be. So double click, change it to what you want it to be. Find something that's unique, something that's interesting, something that you like. When you're happy, hit OK. Notice here you can reverse it if you would like. Play around with that as you would like. So that's kind of the look that I want to have. I want a very warm tone. Next, it's about the text. Now text is key, so I'm going to bring all this text back. Text is key in what we're looking to do. Remember, you can use your move tool to click on anything and move it around. So I want to play with a specific font here. I'm going to go to Helvetica, New, and I want you to notice there's all these different options for Helvetica New. That's why we're going to play with it. So I want Helvetica New Bold on the J. Cole. Now, you're going to have to determine what color your text is based on your background. If your background is dark, then you need to be using a whiter or lighter font. If yours is light like mine, then you need to be using black. So I'm going to keep using Helvetica. I'm going to play around with some different options here. I want you to play around with them as well. I don't really care if you're using the correct font or the correct size. What I care is that it has the correct feel. You should be able to read everything, and it should be in order similar to mine. So I'm going to stop talking for a second, and again, I'm sorry, you can change the date on this if you want to, because this is from last year. You can put 2020 December if you want. I'm going to stop talking at this point. I want you to change the fonts all to Helvetica New. Feel free to play around with the different options here and make it as big or as small as you want it to be, as long as it has a similar feel to mine. So I'm going to stop. You do you for a minute. Okay, so a couple of things to note here. Right here at the bottom, you'll see that I have a 6-point font. A 6-point font is the smallest the human eye is going to be able to read, so you don't want to go below 6 points. Now on level section row, I'm going to use my tab button to kind of space these out so that they're kind of equal. You may end up with extra spaces in here, so you want to delete those if you happen to see those. That way that everything's equal. And I can kind of separate these by hitting that tab so that they line up with each other. Oops. Again, make sure you're choosing Helvetica on each one of these. Helvetica bold, medium, metallic, whatever floats your boat. Now, one thing I do want to do real quick is I want to make a shape. So I'm going to get my rectangle shape, and I want to kind of start at the top of this wing and go all the way to the edge of this document, right there on KOD Tour. I want to change this color to whatever you want it to be. So I'm going to go black on mine with no stroke. If you want something different, that's fine. Move your rectangle down underneath KOD Tour, and notice that you still can't read. In fact, excuse me, move that rectangle down below the wing itself so that the wing cuts it. KOD Tour will be invisible to me, but it's still there. So I want you to notice that if I hover my mouse over where KOD was, it still lights up like I can click on it. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to change that color to, I think I'm going to go to this orange color that's everywhere. Bam. Alright. So that gives me my basic look here. Change that over. Alright. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my line tool, and I'm going to create a dashed line right here. I'm holding shift as I make that line. Remember, your line needs to be dashed, which is this option right here. You might need to play with your caps a little bit to make sure you got the right thing. You might need to play with your stroke and fill to make sure that they're right. I believe you need a black fill with no stroke in order to see this right. And you need to play with your width of your stroke a little bit. So I'm going to push my width up to, I think 5 is probably where it needs to be. Yeah. So a 5 pixel height, black stroke, no fill. So that gives me the stub of the ticket. Now the stub of the ticket is where all the basic information is going to be held. So in order to affect this and to put all this same information over here, I'm going to duplicate. Now I've shown you multiple ways of duplication throughout this class. You can hold hold Option or Alt and click and drag like I just did there. So Option, click and drag. I'm hitting Command T to rotate this, or Control T if you're on a PC. I'm going to change all of this information, or I'm going to leave the information the same, excuse me. I'm just going to move it down to this stub, but everything's going to stay the same. I may need to change some font colors, like KOD Tour here needs to go back to black. So I'll highlight that, change that to black. Need my address. You can always copy and paste. That's Command C and Command V as in Victor, or Control C and Control V as in Victor. So I'm going to use my little pink guides that are popping up to take me to the right location for this centered wise. You'll kind of have to eyeball it on this top layer. And then I'm going to take my row and place this down here as well. Alright, so that is what I should be seeing. Very basic, pretty cool looking concert ticket done like that. We just needed a couple layer masks, a couple adjustment layers, text put in correctly. If I really wanted to style this, I could always go down and find these layers, hit my FX, and you can see the KOD Tour right here. I can start adding different effects to it to kind of make it cooler if I wanted to. Add a gradient on it if I want to, or an outer glow to make it pop. Those are your layer styles. So I want you to tinker with this. I want you to make it look as good as possible, but at the end of the day, it kind of needs to look like this. So once you've got this, take your screenshot, turn it into today's lesson, and good job again. See you in the next one.